Alright, so we're going to get started with assignment number 1, and this assignment is actually going to take you the duration of the semester to complete because it's basically a cumulative test just to kind of double check that you understand everything that we're going through this semester. So as you're working on other assignments, you can always come back to this one and create those kinds of things. So with this, what we're doing is we're going to start off with this first video. Okay, this is the one you're watching now, is this video here. So I'm going to go through these types of things. And throughout the semester, you're going to just ensure that you have organization, ensure you have set your project and save your preferences, and you know how to do snapping and hotkeys, and interface customization, and low-res modeling, and polygon modeling, and NURBS, and use the hypershade. Okay, so this first video, we're going to cover all of these types of things here, just to make sure you understand all of these types of things so that you can use these, because these are the things that are going to be used throughout this entire class. Every single assignment is going to utilize some aspects of most of these things. You may not use NURBS on every one, or you may not use polygon on every one, but you'll definitely use one or the other or both. Okay, but you'll definitely use organization and setting your project and saving your preferences and so on. The second video will cover all of these types of things, which is more of the rendering side of it. And then all of these will just be things that will trickle into those other assignments. Okay, but I want to have one video that kind of covered a lot of these things. And then the third video is going to be just recreating some basic materials, just so you have an idea of how to create wood or plastic or metal or glass or rubber or concrete. Okay, so throughout the semester you'll be working on these things. And as you go and you know, I feel that you've set your project and you're organizing your things correctly, I'll go through and say, okay, take your sheet out and let me check off organization or check off set project, because I can see that you're doing those kinds of things. I can see that your low-res modeling capabilities are there. I can see that your hypershade use is there, and so on. Okay, so that's going to be our first assignment. Not really our first assignment, but our first understanding of what we're going to be doing in Maya. Okay, so first thing, let's go to the desktop here, and on your computer at the college you have a D drive. So I just have this D drive folder that I've created right here, and if it's at home, it's going to be a different setup. Obviously, I like to just have this little D drive folder. That way I know that I'm referencing basically the D drive at the college. So if I'm working back and forth, I can say, okay, this is the D drive at the college, this is my D drive at home. It makes more sense. Okay, like on my laptop, my D drive is actually my DVD drive, so I couldn't save anything there. All right, so on the D drive, you're going to make a folder called W14. Okay, now you can't just put a W14 folder, because, you know, if there's 12 classes, you're going to have, you know, 12 W14 folders. So your first folder is going to be your name. So you're just going to make a folder with your name, Sean Sarcona, and then you can put the W14 right at the end of it. Okay, that way you don't have to have that in there. The other way you could do this, and this is, you know, I'm giving you a choice here. You could either do your name W14, or you could do your name, and then inside your name you would have the W14. It's up to you. Just more clicks, that's all. Okay, inside the W14 you're going to create a folder for your class. So in this case we're 2520. All right, but if you're in the 2540, 2560, 2510, you're going to create a folder that would have those types of things in it. Okay, so in 2520, new folders here, right click, new folder, or go to the command line and find that folder, and then just do make directory whatever, 2520. 2520, you're going to create two folders. One's going to be source and one's going to be work. The work folder is going to contain everything that you're going to be working on. So here's assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3. These are actually things that you're working on inside of Maya or Photoshop or whatever. Okay, so I don't have anything in here yet because we haven't really started an assignment yet, but you'll see how we start breaking these things up into nice orderly fashion. In the source folder, this is where you're going to create folders for all of your other assignments. If I jump back to this thing, you can see here's assignment number 2, which is our product rendering. Here is assignment number 3, organic modeling. Here's assignment 4, mechanical apparatus. Assignment 5, environmental. Assignment 6, Passion Piece. Okay, and then assignment 7 is Demo Reel. So inside here, I have stuff for, here's my product reference. So if I go into this, here's a bunch of product reference images that I have. Here are some textures that I have as well. My Passion Piece I didn't collect anything for yet, or any of these other ones I haven't collected anything for. Okay, here are some random textures where I can start storing dirt, metal, plastic, rust, wood. Okay, so things that might be used throughout several of these, I probably also want to copy them in here. So if I go to my product reference and I go to my textures, inside here I have several textures, and I'll show you how to obtain these later. But here's a leather, here's a metal, a couple metals, here's a rust, here's a wood. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my I don't have one for kind of like organic or materials. Actually, let me just make a leather one where I can know it's leather. So I'm going to copy this one in here. Okay, here's my metals. So I'm going to copy my metals in there. Here's my woods. I'm going to copy the woods in there. Okay, so now I'm just starting to create a category. So when I come to another assignment and I say, gee, on my environmental scene, I need to have a metal, I can just jump into my textures folder, go into my metal folder, and look through the ones I already have. And that way I don't have to go through and re-download anything or try to hunt for something that I already have something used there. Okay? So this is how I want to see you organizing your stuff. Okay? And this is, here's all the reference for my first one, which is my product rendering one. Okay, now I'm going to jump back to this real quick just so you can see, here it is, number 2, that for each one of your assignments, you're going to be turning in 2 detailed sketches of your item you're creating for different layouts. Spend time on these. I'll show these in class. 10 reference images showing different views, colors, layouts of the item. So inside here are my different things that I might want to include in there. This is, right here we go. This is a Barbasol can. In my lecture video for the first one, or the product rendering, I'm doing a Gillette can. But I want to get reference of, different cans, different labels, different colors that are used. Here's a bunch of different labels I thought were kind of cool. Here's a sign I thought was neat. Here's a pure silk. Here's another sign. Here are some different items that I might include in there. Here's a label that I found. Now this label isn't for shaving cream, but it has a lot of the same kind of things that it would have on a shaving cream can. Here's the one of the actual cans that I model. That's actually the one. Here's another one. Okay, so you want to go through and grab reference for everything that you may or may not put in there. Okay, so like this, I'm probably not going to model all this stuff in here. Okay, I just don't have time to model all of this stuff. But I want to have reference for it. If I do have time, I want to be ready to go and say, okay, well, I have time for this. Let's go through and hammer this other stuff out. Okay? So you want to get lots of reference. The more reference, the better. Okay? But you have to find good reference too. So we'll get into finding good reference in a little bit. All right? So this is your organization. That's what we're focusing on right now, is just creating this structure of going to the D drive, making a folder with your name, make sure somewhere there's the semester winter 14, and then there's your class, and then you would have your source with each one of your projects in there. You can copy these names if you want, or just create them as you go. Initially you'll just have these 2, and then as you go you'll start to create the other ones. I've also created a final movies and stills. Okay, now as we create a product rendering, we're going to jump into the final movies and stills, and we're going to drop that in here. Okay, and as we go into the mechanical one, and we finish that one, we'll drop the final movie inside here. As we go to this and finish, we'll drop the movie in there. Okay, and then we also have our work folder. You don't need to create these assignments in here yet. I just created those just so you can see what we're going to be putting in there. Okay, so there's the folders that you're going to create. So that essentially checks off, let me go back up here, that would check off your organization of making sure your stuff stays organized by creating these folders and ensuring for at least half the semester, it should be the entire semester, but half the semester, that you've gone through and made sure that you understand how to use these things. Okay, and like as always, if you don't know how to use them, make sure you get with me and make sure you are following these things. Usually what happens is people don't organize their stuff correctly, and they end up with, here's assignment 1, and then they copy it in here, and then there's assignment 1 copy, 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 and then it's like, okay, well, which one are you actually working on? And then you don't have any idea. You need to stay organized. Every class, stay organized. This is a great way to do it. Okay? So organization, bam, right off the bat. We're going to skip set project for a second and go down to preferences. On the lab computers, it's very easy to kind of get yourself screwed up a little bit. Okay? And the main reason for that is there's so many people using the software that your preferences can get lost. Someone else copies their preferences in, whatever happens, they change something, and it doesn't work anymore. So I'm going to go to my, my case, I'm going to go to Documents. On the lab computers, you're going to go to D drive. Okay. I'm going to go to the Maya folder. And inside here, there's a 2014 and a 2013 folder. Okay. If I'm using Maya 2013, I would delete the 2013 folder. If I'm using 2014, I would delete the 2014 folder. Okay. Or it doesn't hurt to delete both of those. So I'm actually, because I have my preferences already kind of set up the way I want, I'm just going to throw them into this folder here just so I can get them back. Okay. So now the preferences are gone. So what that means is that now when I boot up Maya 2014, it's going to create a brand new folder. There it is, 2014 x64, with my preferences. And then we can go through and set up the preferences, and that way we know that everything is going to be cool and will work perfectly. And then we can back these up, and then every day we can come in and replace the ones that are there. Now if someone's rendering, you can't remove this preference folder, but typically it's not a huge deal. It's usually, you know, a couple things here or there that get messed up. If you're at home, you don't need to do this. But it's always good to kind of start off from square one and build yourself back up to where you should be. All right, so here's the interface. Let's go through and just set up a couple basic things. I'm going to start over here at the create. Oops, I'm going to start here actually and turn these off. These are just little pop-ups. If you've forgotten, you know, where things are, this is going to highlight everything that's new. So I can leave that on and just turn it off to not show at startup. And then this guy here, I don't want that to show up at startup, but if you wanted to see how to create or view objects, how to zoom, pan, rotate, I encourage you to watch these videos if you've forgotten anything from the intro class. All right, so now we're going to go to create, NURBS, and I'm going to turn off interactive creation. Okay, create polygon, turn off interactive creation. Now before I turn this off on this one, I'm just going to show you what it does. If I create a pipe, there it is, it wants me to drag the base on the grid, then pull up for the height. So I drag the base on the grid, click and drag to pull up for the height, and then click and drag for the thickness. That's like way too many clicks for me to create an object. And if you'll notice, it's not centered at all on the origin. And I really like to have my stuff centered at the origin. So I turn that off. And I do that just so that when I create a pipe, there it is. Okay? And if I want to modify these settings, I'll modify them after. Alright, so we've turned those things off. I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to say Project Window. And I'm going to just put my project where it's going to be. So I know I'm going to make a new project. And for the first assignment, I'll just do product rendering. And I put my name on there. Okay, that way I know it's mine. And I'm going to go to the D drive, which is on my desktop, but on yours it's going to be on the actual D drive. And I'm just going to locate my work folder, and this is where I'm going to put it. Okay, so I'm going to say select, product rendering, there it is. All my folders automatically are created. I'm going to hit accept. Okay, so now if I go back to my D drive, go into work, here's my product rendering Sarcona folder with all the stuff populated in there. Okay, so we need to have that kind of set up before we start working on something. And I did it here before. I mean, we're not even going to start that project in this one, but I just wanted you to get an idea of it. But I want to make sure that we understood where it was and kind of set it up so that when we are doing our project stuff, that it automatically jumps to our folder instead of someone else's. All right, so there's that. Let's go into next to the key down here. There's a little animation pref. I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to work my way down. Okay, so if I wanted to turn off that highlight, I could turn that off right here, or I could change the color. Maybe the green's distracting. You want pink, or you want yellow. I don't know what. I'm going to just go down one at a time. And I don't think I want to change anything here. I dislike this view cube here. Okay, and the reason I dislike it is because it really F's up your settings for other stuff. So sometimes you'll go to the right view, and then you'll jump back to perspective, and your perspective is now stuck to the right view, and you have to use this to change it. So I never use the view cube. I turn that off. That's your preference, though, of what you want to do. I discourage using it. I think it's a horrible thing. So I turn that off. The help is always good to have on. The display is good. Let's see, that's good, that's good. And here under polygons, there's a lot of options that will show how to change these later without having to go there. But you can do things like change the size of the vertices, change the edges, edge width, display things that we'll get into. This is settings here. This is an important one if you're going between like a CAD package in Maya. Is this up axis? We leave it on Y for Maya, but some CAD packages have it as Z. So you want to just keep an eye on that if you're coming in from like AutoCAD, where your Z may be the up direction, and you bring a car in, and your car is up and down and not like on the grid. So that could fix that. Typically I leave this as Y. Our work units, pay attention to this. They're centimeters. Okay, so as we're working inside here, each one of these little grid units is actually a centimeter. All right. Our rotations are degrees. Our time is set to 24. Okay. For the modeling class, we want to have it at 24. That way, when we do 120 frame rendering, we get 5 seconds instead of 4 seconds. That's the only reason we do that. But this really is going to depend on the client. What's the client want? Do they want it at 30? Do they want it at 24? And you'll kind of learn that as you go. But for this, we're going to keep it at 24. Everything here seems good. This is an important one to kind of look at. There's an autosave feature in here. This autosave feature allows you to, take a guess, autosave. But you can set this up and say every 10 minutes I want Maya to automatically save. It's not too bad at the college because you wouldn't get a pop-up warning that says, do you want to automatically save because it's the student version. But on your home computers, every 10 minutes you'll get that little pop-up. So you just have to make sure you kind of click that every 10 minutes. And if you walk away from your computer, well, then guess what? It's going to keep doing that. You can also limit the number of autosaves. So you save, disk space. And realistically, if you're going to use autosave, you want to punch in a number that, how many more minutes do you want to redo the work that you've done? I'm at the point where I can, most of the time, get back there in a relatively good amount of time. So I typically don't use autosave, but I encourage you to, look at that and see if you want to use it. You can also save these into a different folder. You can just drop it into a named folder, and then they'll go in there. On file save, just do it as is. Display layers, yep, everything's good there. Ignore version's always a good one too. That way when you are saving your stuff, it doesn't save the stuff inside there. Or when you're bringing stuff in, sorry. When you're bringing stuff in, it doesn't reference, whether you're on Maya 2014 or 2013 or whatever. In this case, it's not really going to matter because we're in 2014, but just so you know. Let's see. Everything else is good here. The next one is probably going to be selection. Under selection here, one of the things that people like to kind of toy with is this polygon selection thing. So if I right click and go to face, you'll see that I can click on the face. All right. So if I wanted to grab like these two faces here, I could just marquee just that edge and I get both faces. All right. But I can also turn on what's called center. Okay. And center shows the little dots. So if I marquee the edge, it's not going to do anything because it's not grabbing that dot. I actually have to marquee the dot or click the dot in order for it to select that face. And that could be good because if I go at a certain angle like this, you know, I could just marquee these two dots and get each side. Okay. In this case, you're not really seeing a huge, you know, what's the benefit of it. But if I had something like a sphere, I could say, okay, I want these dots right there. And I don't have to worry about accidentally marking, you know, the edges of something else. As long as I know that I have those dots right there, I'm good. Or if I go to whole face, I was actually very careful there. Let me be a little bit less careful. Okay, let's say I want to marquee these. You can see, oops, that I kind of get, you know, an array of things and not just exactly what I wanted. All right. So that's an important one. There's also another one, which is camera-based selection. And with this, as I'm looking at that and I marquee this, you can see I didn't select anything on the back of this. Because the camera couldn't see that, it won't select it. So that could be a handy thing to have on your screen as well, or a setting. I don't typically have that on. I do other things to do that, but you could have that turned on as well. Okay. And then there's also like the click box size. I've never played with that. I don't know what that does. It does something probably bad that I'm screwing up, but that's fine. I typically like to have this as whole face, and I typically like to have that have this camera-based selection off. Okay, but just so you know where they're at, in case you see, you know, why is this doing this? That's why it's doing it. I'm going to talk real quickly about this. This is selection priority. And what this allows you to do is, you know, when I marquee something, let's say I have a couple things in here. I have a light. I have a joint. Not that kind. I have an IK handle. There we go. Okay, so I have several things inside my scene. When I marquee this, you'll notice that I only select this. Okay, I'll delete that. I'll marquee again, and you'll notice that I select this. I'll delete that, marquee these, and it selects both. Okay, there's actually a priority of how Maya decides what to select when we're marqueing things, and this is that list. Okay. And you can see as I click on it, there's their priority number right there. So if I go to IK handles, they're at 10. If I go to joint, they're at 9. So the higher the number, the more likely they are to be selected. Okay? So just be aware of that there is a priority of why things get selected above other things. There's a snapping right here. There's edge snapping, whatever. I don't touch any of these settings, but just so you know that there's extra settings. There's a sound thing here where we could adjust sound settings. Here's a time slider, which is this stuff down here. We are going to utilize this at some point. One thing I want to set right now is to do a play every frame, but then set our max playback speed to real time. Okay. So you see it says 24. This is going to play back as fast as it can, but it's only going to play back at 24 frames per second total. That's good. That's good. Undos, you could set your undos to a higher number or a smaller number, you know, 500 if you wanted to. You could set it to actually be infinite, but it just takes up more memory. Okay, everything like every click and declick is an undo. So you don't want to have this number too high. I would say the most you want to go is probably 200. I'm fine at 50. Okay. Typically, if I have to go back 50, it's probably quicker for me just to remodel something. Don't need to worry about that right now. Everything else is good here. Cool. So let's save this. So those are our preferences down here. Let's go over to the Custom tab. And I'm just going to go to this arrow over here and go to the shelf editor. Okay. And I'm going to rename my custom one to Sarcona. Hit enter. And now that says Sarcona. Okay. I'm also going to go to options and say text below. Icon text below. And then say save all shelves. Okay. Now that did take up a little bit more screen space. If I go to one of these other ones, you can see how now it has the name of the tool underneath it, where it didn't before. We're going to add in some of our custom shelf things. If you have a piece of paper, you should have a piece of paper. I'll wait. Okay, you got it. And a pen. I'll wait again. All right, you got it. You want to start writing down as many shortcut keys as you can. You will need shortcut keys. You want to have a list of these on hand at all times. So, shortcut key to add something into our shelf. Hold down Control Shift. Go to Modify Center Pivot. Okay? That's all you have to do. It's there. Okay? It doesn't look like anything happened, but it did. We just couldn't see it because it was behind this box. Hold down Control Shift still. Edit. Delete by type. History. Again, we can't see it happening, but there it is. If we accidentally added too many, like I accidentally went and added another delete history, I could just middle drag this over to the trash can. Okay? Now, you're keeping these things on so you can see what the names are. I'm actually going to turn mine off just because it does take up too much screen space and it's actually like this too much space here. But just so you can, as a beginner, can see, okay, this is the delete history, this is center pivot. Hold Control Shift still, window outliner. There it is. Hold Control Shift still, window rendering editors, hypershade. There it is. Hold Control Shift still, window animation editor, graph editor. There we go. And do I want anything else in here? I'm going to hold Control Shift, go to Snap Align Objects, and go to Align Objects option box. Okay. Now see that in this case I went to Menu Item 952. If I click on this, it actually pops open the option box instead of just going into the tool. Okay, which is very handy to do. All right, but I'm going to show you another way to kind of customize this. So I'm just going to keep it there for now. Center Pivot, History, Outliner, Hypershade, Graph Editor. That's good. You can also do the Attribute Editor if you want to put that in there. I just use Control A to bring that out. Okay. And while we're doing it, if you look at this, as I'm hitting Control A, it pops this window, like it expands it. And I hit Control A again, and then it does that. Well, we're not really seeing it because this is a simple scene. But when I'm hitting Control A, this area here, our viewport area, is basically it has to refresh itself. Okay? So I hit Control A, it refreshes itself and shows this. I hit Control A, it refreshes itself and shows that. Alright? Even though it's just kind of resizing it, that's what it's doing. And although we're not seeing it here, it actually is taking up valuable resources. So I'm going to hit Control A just to bring it out. And I'm just going to grab it and just drag it out of there. Okay? And that way I just have this as a separate thing. So now when I close it and hit Control A, it just pops open. And there's no refresh that's happening here. I could also take this and drag it to another screen if I had another screen hooked up. Okay? Alright, so for now that's good. As you go, remember the Control Shift. Hold Control Shift and say, you know what, I'm going to Play Blast an awful lot, or I'm going to the Node Editor an awful lot, or I'm going to this 2-point circular arc tool an awful lot. I want to create a little menu thing up here that has that. Okay? Alright, so now let's customize this thing. I found that this here, there's two uses that I do for this. One of them is distribution, and the other one is this midpoint aligning. All right. So just so you can see what these are real quick. So I have a cube and a sphere. I want to take the sphere and line it up with the center of this cube. Okay. So I can click this one, shift click that one, say I want to line up the midpoints of X, Y, and Z to the last selected object. Okay, so I click this one first, shift click that one, hit apply, and you'll see how it just aligns that sphere perfectly centered inside there. All right, so that's one use for this tool. The other use is, let's say I have a number of objects here. All right, if you look, I have a bunch of objects. I want to evenly distribute them. Okay, so I would go to distribute, and I would tell it which direction. So in this case, if I look at this little icon down here, it's going in the X direction. All right, I can also look at this and see, you know, that's the X. So I'm going to turn those off, hit apply, and I can say, you know what, that's still not good enough. I'm going to pull that out further, grab them all again, hit apply, there we go. Okay, so I have this, this thing kind of set up like this. So what I can do is, I have two uses for this. One of them, like I said, is this midpoint, and the other one is this distribute. All right. So I want to have two menus up here. One of them is just going to be this box that pops open, and I can just use the distribute as I want. And then the other one is just going to be mid. I may use this mid a lot, and I don't want to have to pop open the box, click all the buttons again, and then whatever. Okay. I can be pretty lazy sometimes. All right. So let's go and set this again. So I'm just going to redo this. So I'm just redoing the mid, align, apply. Okay, now if you look down here at the script editor, there's a little script, align-atl-xmid-ymid-zmid. If I click on the far right and open this thing up, okay, that's the script. That's what's doing all that work. So if I middle drag this script up to my shelf, okay, just highlighted it, middle mouse button, drag it up, and I say I want to save the script as a mel command. Close this. Let's just pretend that that's it. I click this, click that button, and now I don't need to have that pop up there. Okay, click this, click that, click that, click this, click that, click that. Okay. So anything that you realize, you know what, I'm doing this an awful lot, I'm going into this thing, setting some menus, whatever. You can go in there and set it and change it. I could also go in here, let me delete those and make a new object. Okay, here's this, here's my menu item. I'm going to leave it on distribute in the X direction and distribute. Okay, here's the distribute command. Okay, so I could drag this up here, save it as a mel, and then anytime I decided to run that one, I could just grab it and click it. Okay, but then what's going to happen is this is just the X direction. Let's pretend that I delete this. I go in the Z direction. I say I need to distribute these evenly. You'll see that nothing happens. Okay, so I just have to be very careful with that because I want to make sure that I use it correctly. If I go into this and I say X, Y, and Z, you'll see how X, Y, and Z did exactly what I wanted it to do. So I can save this command. Okay, I don't want this result, I just want the align part. Middle drag that up here as a mel, middle drag this one out, there we go. Okay, and then I can also middle drag this out because I don't need that anymore. Alright, so now this one is going to align them all, and then this one is going to distribute them. Okay, now what's kind of neat about this too is that if I have it here and I grab this, oops, why did that? Let me grab this one and drag it over. It needs to have like a far left and a far right, or the extremes. Oh, it's because it's grabbing it. It doesn't know which one to do because these are all like perfectly lined up. So it's kind of getting a little bit of a headache trying to decipher which ones should be in what order. Typically you have them like, you know, staggered, then you're like, all right, well I need it perfect. There we go, now it's perfect. All right. So now I have these, but obviously it's a little bit difficult to read. So I'm going to go to the shelf editor again. I'm going to go to this one, and I'm just going to go to the tooltip, and I'm going to say align mid. Okay, and I could even label it here align mid. There we go. All right, it's kind of cutting it off, but whatever, it works. Then I'm going to go to, oops. There you go. I want to rename it up here too, align mid. There we go. All right, so that works. I'm going to go to this, and we'll say distribute. I need to distribute it. I could even just put align, you know, just align. Distribute. There we go. Okay, so I can save it. I could also, if I decided that I wanted to create an icon, I could go in here and find an icon that, you know, I used. But I don't need to do that. Or I can pick one of these ones from this list of things. Oops, there we go. Align on mid, that's what we want there. Actually, that one's distribute. Oh, that was it. Align distribute. Okay. Select. All right, so there's my distribute one. I go to the line, click that. And then find the align mid. Select. Okay. So now that I have those, it makes it a little bit easier for me to see all that stuff. All right. So I'm going to turn off the icons or the text below because I really don't care for it. All right. So now I get this little short menu that I really like the short menu better. But obviously, if you don't know what GE means, then it's going to be hard for you to see. All right. And just like before, you can go into here, click the thing, and then see if there's any icon that maybe, you know, makes more sense to you. Like that one says get, there it is, get graph editor, that's the one. And then let's see, attribute editor. Sure, we'll use that one. I wonder if there was a get attribute editor. Nope. Okay, cancel. Let's go to the outliner and see if there's anything for the outliner. Nope. Yeah, and you can look through these, you know, spend hours, make your own, whatever. And once you start working in the industry and you kind of get a feel for, you know, this is what you want, I'm just going to use that. That works. Then you can take these preferences with you anywhere. And that's one of the cool things about it. Hyper shade, that works. Or that, I like that one. Oops, actually I don't like that one because that was a different icon. I'll just stick that. There we go. Okay, so now I have those. I don't know if I want to find something for history. Yeah, that one's good enough. Okay. So I have plenty of things here that, you know, are definitely helpful to have. I can also go into these and go to my pop-up menus. That's not a pop-up. My command, and I could change stuff. Okay. So I could actually put like a little script inside here that would do something else or something further from here. Like let's say every time I go to the hypershade, I want to deselect something. Okay. So I'm going to go to my shelf. I'm going to go to hypershade. I'm going to go to command. I'm going to say select -cl semicolon. That's the one with the dot and a comma. Okay, so select -cl hypershade window. So now what this means is that once I hit save and I go to the hypershade, it's thinking, there it goes. So it goes into the hypershade and you'll see that it deselected everything. I click on something, hypershade, deselects. All right. I have no actual use for that, to do a clear my selection before I go in the hypershade. But sometimes you'll want to do certain things where it's not just, the one command. Every time I go to the outliner, or every time I go to whatever, something in here, that I want something else to happen. All right. So I'm going to delete those guys. All right. So now we got our shelf set up. I'm going to go to File and Save Preferences as we're going. That way all the stuff that we've done so far has been saved. What else do we have? Layers are good. This stuff up here is good. Yeah, this is all good here. Not going to change anything there yet. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to show you real quick how to make. So we've gone through organization. We've gone through saving our preferences, which we'll get a little bit more into. A couple hotkeys. We're going to talk a little bit about interface customizing. Okay. I want to create something here that, oops, wrong one, that allows me to get some items that I'm constantly using. If you haven't touched it yet, there's this modeling toolkit that's now inside Maya. And it's a tremendously helpful tool for doing a lot of polygon things to it. But again, it's something that we have to have kind of popped open to use this thing, and it just takes up screen space. So I may not want to use that all the time. I may want to create my own little pop-up menu that I could use. So under a window, settings, preferences, marking menu editor, there we go. I'm going to create a marking menu. Okay. Now this marking menu that I'm creating is basically going to be like the right click thing here, like that. Or let me actually create something so you can see it better. Like this. Okay. So all these little areas that are here are all of these things. And this little sliding thing here is this thing here. Okay. So I'm going to go into, I'm going to scoot these over. I'm going to go to the polygon tools. And let's say I just wanted to have a pop-up that would allow me to create all of these things here. So I'm just going to middle drag the sphere, the cube, cylinder, cone, plane, torus, pyramid, pipe, and there's one more that's not in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to helix. Come on. Oh, I have to put it in the shelf first, right? I'm going to add it to the shelf. So I'm just going to make just like a dummy shelf here. Just new shelf. Dummy. Okay, and I'm just going to create Control Shift on this helix. There we go. Alright, so now I can just middle drag helix into this mix also. Okay, so I could also right click on this and say edit and get rid of the labeling that says polygon sphere if I wanted to. Or I could just, like the shelf editor, I can change the command that's being used. I could tell it whether to have an option box or not. There we go. Okay, I'm going to give this a name. I have to shrink this down. My screen just doesn't support the size of it. It's weird. Menu name, poly create. Okay, I can use my left mouse button here to test it, and you can see like here is all of those things, and then the little option box right next to it. So instead of me having to go, I want to create a cube. Instead of me having to go to create polygon cube, I can make a little hotkey here that allows me to do this and create a polygon cube. Okay, so it's very handy to have something like that. So poly create. I'm just going to hit save and close. All right. So now I've created this thing, and it's not anywhere right now. Right now it's just here. So I need to tell it I want to use this in the hotkey editor, and then apply settings and close. Okay, so now again, it's nowhere yet. It's kind of hiding. So I'm going to go to Settings Preferences, Hotkey Editor. Okay, and this is where all your hotkeys are that are inside Maya. So every single hotkey that's in here, let's see, one that we know, File Save, right? File, Save Scene, Control S. Okay, so we know that one's there. So what I'm going to do is go down to the bottom here where it says User. I'm sorry, User Marking Menus. And here's my Poly Create Press and a Poly Create Release. Okay, you'll always have two here for the stuff that you're creating. So what I want to do is find a key that I could use. So let's say I hold down the C key, all right, and I click. Then what I could do is use that every time I do that, all right. So if I go to C, and let's pretend that just for fun, let's say I did Control S, all right. It'll say right now Control S is assigned to Save Scene from File. Well, I don't want to override that one. So what happens if I do just C? C is assigned to Curve Snap. Okay. What about capital C? Capital C is assigned to Curve Snap. That's fine. I only want the one C anyway, so I can just use Shift C as my hotkey. All right. So I'm going to say assign. Are you sure you want to overwrite the old one? Yes. Hotkey is blah blah blah. Okay. The marking menu will not work correctly unless you assign a release key. Do you want to do this? Yes. All right. So now that we have that shortcut key assigned, I'm just going to scoot that off to the side. If I come over here and I hit Shift C and I click, you'll see that now I have my hotkey menu. Okay. So I just want to double check just to make sure that my other stuff is going to work. You see how I did that? I created the hotkey and then I actually went up here to create polygon, sphere, whatever. I create a curve. Yep, and then my C shortcut key, my snap to curve is still working, so that's good. All right, so that's working. I'm happy with the way that is. I'm just going to hit save, yes, and close. All right. So Control C, and now I can access any of these right from there. Or if I decide that I want to get the pipe, I can go to pipe. Okay. So if you decide that, you know, as you're working, I'm constantly going to this extrude. Okay, we'll add it to there. I'm constantly going to bridge. I'm constantly going to append to polygon or interactive split. Okay, or any of these things. You can make your own hotkey menu to get to these things. Right. Now there's also, if I hit Shift C right mouse button, there actually is one already created for creating polygons, creating polyplanes, polycylinders, polycone, cube, torus, sphere, polydisc, and some of these other ones. And there's another one, I can never remember what it is. Control C? No. Oh, and Shift C and right click is the one that Maya has created. Actually, it's just Shift. I just hold Shift and right click. Yeah. Shift and right click takes me into that menu. There was another one, I can't remember where it is. Okay, but you can make your own, and that's the important thing, is that you should really get in the habit of making your own and customizing your own, because you really get the ability to create something that works exactly for you the way you want it to work. Okay, so I'm just going to delete these and then delete this dummy shelf here. Yes. Okay. And then go back to my Sarcona one, and there it is. All right, so we've gone over in this one so far, we've gone over organization. We've created our preferences. We'll get into saving them. We've gone over some of the hotkeys that we can create ourselves, and we've done some interface customization. Same thing that we're doing there. You could also customize your layouts. Okay, I'm not going to get too much into this, but just know that we can go to let's say 3-pane split bottom, and then I could just change one of these to visor. Thinking, and then change this one over here to relationship editor. Not that you'd have these two here ever, but just so you can see that you can change these things and customize what's laid out. Have that as the outliner. Have this as the graph editor. There we go. Okay, and then we can do stuff here. Now on my screen it's kind of squished, but on the screens at school and your home screen it'll be much better. Okay, and then you can go through and do a saved layout. Oops. Edit layouts, there we go. And then I'm just going to make a new layout, which is what I'm currently at, and call this one Perspective Outliner Graph Editor. I can even add to the shelf, close it, and then I could just switch my layouts here to, let's say, save layouts, single perspective view, or go to my layouts and do the one that I just had. Okay, so think about all these things as you're working to kind of speed up what you're doing. The one that I did is actually one that's already on here, which is somewhere in here. One of those ones that I just clicked on. Okay, so just keep that in mind that you can really customize this to get it to look the way you want it to look. This is a handy one when you have the screen space, because you can kind of play with your materials here, see your objects here, and render it out there. Okay, so you may see me jump in and out of those as we go. All right, so that's that. All right, so now that we have the interface customized, we've gone through some of those hotkeys that are there. Let's go through and save our preferences. Okay, so I'm just going to close this. Don't save. Okay, this is just saving the scene. We don't need to save the scene. All right, and so now in our Maya folder, this is our master. Okay, so this here, we want to copy this, and I'm going to drop it into my 2520 folder. So I just copied and pasted that 2014 folder. Okay, so there it is. There it is. So now every time I come in, I'm going to go into the Maya folder. You have to pay attention to this. Okay, you have to make sure that you do it the correct order. I have to delete the preferences out of here first. I have to click on these and delete those. Now they're gone. Then I'm going to go to my 2520 folder. I'm going to right click and copy. I'm going to go into the Maya folder, right click and paste. I still have one here. I still have one there. You have to make sure that you still have both copies of this after you do that. Okay? Alright, so if I were to delete this from the Maya folder, and then I booted up Maya, then Maya would reset its preferences back to the default ones which we started with a while ago. But if I copy mine in there and paste them, there they are, and then I open up Maya, what I'm going to get is my preferences that I have set up. That's what you want to do every single time you come to class, is you want to go into the Maya folder, delete the old preferences, go to your 2520 folder, copy, don't cut, copy those ones, and paste them in here so that you get your preferences every time you come in. So that when you hit Shift-C and you right-click, you get that, or whatever one you've set up. Or if you hold Shift and you right-click, I mean, that's going to be in any one. But if you have your Sarcona here, or whatever your name is, and you have all your hotkeys listed there, everything's cool. Okay? So you just want to make sure that you have everything set up the way you had it set up. It'll just kind of screw you up if you don't. Okay? So now let's go through project stuff. So we went through the project window before, and we set one up for product rendering. I'm going to make a new one here, and I'm just going to call it Organic Modeling Sarcona and accept. Okay? So now what that did, just like before, in our work folder, we have the two folders, okay, organic and product, organic and product. I need to tell Maya every single time, every time I walk into the class, what I'm working on. So I go to File, I go to Set Project. I say, Maya, today I'm working on product rendering. Set. And now Maya will know that I'm working on product rendering. If I go to Open Scene, it goes to Product Rendering Sarcona Scenes. If I say, now I want to work on something else, I have to go to Set Project again and say, Maya, I'm working on organic modeling. Set Project. And then I go to File Open, and there will be my stuff. Never, ever, ever, write it down 100 times if you need to. Never go into any Maya scene folder and just double click that Maya file and open up your scene from here. That's the incorrect way to do it. That has rookie written all over it, okay? You want to show that you're competent in the software, and doing that is a no-no, a definite no-no, okay? So every time you come in to class, you're going to copy your preferences. So you delete those, copy your ones in there. You'll open the software. You'll go to File, Set Project, tell Maya what you're working on, hit Set, go to File Open, grab your stuff, and then start working on it, okay? That's going to be the process. When you leave for the night, you're going to exit Maya. You're going to go into your 2520 folder, and then if you've changed any preferences, like let's say I added something to the shelf, you want to go through and delete your preferences from the 2520 folder and copy them from this area. Okay? It's not rocket science. All we're doing is backing up a folder. Okay? Pay attention to how you're backing it up. It's very easy to get screwed up on this. Okay? And by very easy, I mean it shouldn't be very easy to get messed up on this because it's a simple thing. You should be able to figure it out that here's our D drive in our Maya folder. We want to copy this to put it here. Okay? That should be a no-brainer just to figure that out. That way you have the latest preferences. If you want to keep an extra copy, make a new folder, call it backup, and then just copy these into here. And then if you're not sure which one, look at the timestamp. 9:57 on 110, 9:52 at 110. Okay, so which one is the most recent one? It's got to be this one because it's sooner. Okay, so then I know that when I come in next time to delete these and copy the most recent ones in there, and then we're good to go. Okay, so that takes us into hotkeys, interface customizing, saving preferences, setting our project, and organization. Okay, so now let's go through some of the snapping tools that we'll be using in the class, as well as just some ideas of these other things here. Okay. So I'm just going to create an object here. Here's a sphere. Okay. So let's say I have a cube. There it is. Here's my cube. I want to get this cube onto the sphere, and I want to get it exactly onto it. Okay. So I'm going to use one of my snapping tools. All the snapping ones, if you look up here, some of these things are kind of collapsed or hidden or whatever. You just click the arrows and it pops them open. All right. This guy here is snapping tools. Collapse it. You don't need to see it right now. Okay. You can keep it open if you'd like, but just pay attention that we don't want to click on these and then click on stuff. Everything should be done in the viewport if we can. So there's three snapping tools that are main. It's X, C, and V. X, C, V. They're right next to each other. Okay. And as I hit X, C, and V, you can see how they cycle. X is for grid snapping. Okay. So as I hold down X and I click and drag with my left mouse button around here, you can see this is snapping to the grid. As I hold C, that's curve snapping, and I click and drag, nothing's going to happen. Okay. And the reason nothing's going to happen is because there's no curves over here. All right. It doesn't want to snap to this because there's no curves. If I hold down V and click, you'll see how it just jumps right to the closest point available. All right. And the point, if we go to wireframe unshaded, there are these little intersections. So all these little intersections here, that's what it's snapping to. Okay. And when it disappears, that means it's snapping to something on the other side. Just because Maya thinks that it's closer. Okay. Let me get closer up to the top. There we go. Move it around. All right. So now let's do some of the other stuff here. If I hold down C, you'll see that now it's snapping. Okay. Because it found a curve, it's recognizing these edges on a polygon as a curve. So hold down C, click and drag, and you'll see that it's stopping. All right, if I go into wireframe, you'll see it a little bit clearer. Let me change my background color and hide the grid. That it's actually snapping right to these edges. All right. Now it's a little bit unpredictable when I'm doing it this way. All right. The middle mouse button is another way we could snap, and that's typically how I do it. So I'm not even going to go by this. Okay. So I'm just going to hold down C, and I'm just going to middle drag along one of these edges. Middle mouse button drag, and now I can snap it right to that one. Or I can hold down C and middle mouse button drag here, it'll snap there. Hold down C, middle mouse button drag here, it'll snap there. Hold down V, middle mouse button drag over here, and it snaps over there. Okay. Now this is extremely useful when you're doing stuff and you're far, far away from your scene. Okay, so I'm like, let's pretend I'm way over here. And then I go and I create a cube. Okay, that cube, if we spin around real quick, is way over there. You can see how far away it is, right there. Okay, so if I want to move that, this is what, you know, rookies will do, is they grab the move tool and they move it over, and then they zoom in, and then they pull it out, and then they mess around with it and do whatever. Okay, here's what we want to do. Create a cube, hold down V, middle mouse button click, there it is. We don't even need to see it. We know it's there. We know it got created because we click the button, we're selected on the cube, and there it is. Okay. Now we also have the ability to snap it just in one direction, which is a fantastic thing to do. So here is this. I'm going to create a plane, and I'm going to snap it right to that. There we go. Okay, so now this is snapped to this, but now I want to snap it just to the bottom. Okay, I want to move it to the bottom of this. So I could just hold down V and then just, you know, move it down to the bottom like that. But let's pretend that I want to make sure that I don't move it. Let's make it like this. I don't move it either this way or this way on accident. All right. So what I can do is I can click on just the direction I want to snap it in. Okay. You see it's yellow. There you go. It was green before. Now it's yellow. I hold down V, middle mouse button click, and you'll see that it's only snapping in that vertical direction. That's a very cool thing to be able to do. Oops. Okay. Let me stretch that out. Wonderful. You need to become familiar with these snapping tools. Your work is going to suffer unless you really understand how to make things happen quicker. Okay, you want to play with these things. You want to get used to them. Even if you spent 3 hours just getting used to snapping tools, that'll save you 20 hours by the end of the semester, 50 hours by the end of the semester. All right, we could also, if I go to vertex on here and I marquee all of these things, I could use this as a way to snap. So I could say I want to snap all of these there. Okay, so now they centered right there. I don't want to center them. I want them to kind of collapse in. I'm going to double click the move tool. Come on. And inside here, there's a retain component spacing. So what's happening is I'm snapping, and what it's doing is remembering where they were spaced, and it's retaining that. So I'm going to say don't retain that. So now when I snap, you can see how it flattens it out. And I can very easily just kind of squish everything together. So now I've created this, I don't know, wedge shape, whatever it is, this hemisphere. Slice of an orange, something. Okay. So those are the snapping tools, X, C, and V. And sometimes what happens is, you know, you want something to snap over here, and you see it's only moving in those directions. Well, it's because the arrow's clicked. So we just click the middle, and now we can snap it wherever. Okay. We can also move the pivot, and this is a common thing to do, is move the pivot like back here. So I hold down D, which is my pivot moving hotkey, and I hold down V, and then I pop it right there. Now I can just snap that wherever I want and rotate it so we're right on there. go. Okay. Now this is also handy for, let's say I have a box, cube. Again, I went to the thing. I don't know why. There it is. Okay. So now I have this box. I want this box to be perfectly lined up with the ground. So I'm going to put the pivot down here. I hold down D to switch to the pivot move tool. And I hold down V, and then I can just snap this right to the bottom point. Okay. So now I can just move this using the move tool and V and snap it right in alignment with one of these. And then scale, scale. You see how I'm scaling it? It's not going below it. It's staying right there. And then when I duplicate it, I can just snap it over and scale that one. And I can duplicate it, scoot it over, scale that. Okay, so very quickly I can lay these things out, as opposed to if I were to just create a cube. Let's say I moved it here and I say, okay, well, I want this to be on the ground, so I'm just going to move that there. Good. Then I say, oops, I need it a little bit taller. So I make it taller, then I have to go back under here. Okay, and then I need to duplicate and then make this bigger. Oops, now it's under the ground again. Nope, a little bit smaller. Oops. And it's constantly back and forth with this, okay? Where these, because the pivot's in the right spot and because I've snapped, it just makes the process a whole lot easier, okay? You're just doing yourself an in-service by not doing that, all right? All right, so that covers those. So let's do some just low-res modeling stuff. Just basically an overview, right? So I'm going to create just something really simple, which is I'm just going to make an ice cube, okay? Now, for an ice cube, that's not an ice cube, right? It's a cube, but it's not an ice cube. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to put a smooth on this. It's under mesh, smooth. And it immediately becomes round, so I'm just going to take my continuity off. Just add some divisions in here. There we go. Okay. Now, notice how I didn't add in this many divisions. Okay. I added in that many divisions. And the reason I added in that many divisions is because I want to go through with the sculpt tool and I'm just going to kind of smooth out some of this stuff here. A little bit too smooth on there. I'm just going to do a little pull. Okay, a little push. There we go. All right, so let's pretend that's our ice cube right there. Okay, so now that still doesn't really look like an ice cube. It still looks a little bit jagged. Well, now what I can do is that I can smooth this out. Okay, and now we're starting to get more of that ice cube shape. All right, so what I didn't do is I didn't just jump right into creating this many divisions and then just go crazy with the sculpt tool. I started off with a lower res model and then I built it up. Here's another example. Here is an assignment we used to do, and you may have even done this one in your class. We used to do this little Red Ryder wagon. And what I'm not doing is starting off with a million divisions. I'm starting off with just some very, very basic divisions. Okay, I'm starting off very, very low res, and I'm building up to something. That's what I'm doing. Actually, I can put it on the whole thing. I'm just going to put a bevel on here. Hit 3. That looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to go to smooth. There we go. So you can see very quickly I created this shape. You know, you have to understand that you're not going to be going crazy with any of the divisions. You start off very low, and then you build up to the divisions you want. All right. You don't jump into it and then start building it. That thing would take me forever if I had created a plane like this and then tried to shape it into that shape, or create a cube and then tried to mess with it with that many divisions. You start off low res and you build yourself up by adding in bevels, by adding in smooths, and so on. So pay attention to those things as you're seeing these assignments and as we're working on them, that you don't want to jump in and just add a bunch of divisions to it. Okay. Also, like here's a plane. It's going to look exactly the same. All right, just ignores the fact that I put 5,000 in here. Let's do 100. There we go. 300. Okay, it's going to look exactly the same with one division going each way or 300 going each way. But as I start duplicating this and creating more of these things, my system is going to start to intensely slow down. Okay, you can see the lag that I'm getting here. Even though they're just planes, you can see there's a little bit of a lag. Maybe you can't see it, but it's there. A little bit of a lag. So as you are creating things, optimization is key. No one is going to hire you if you can't optimize your scene so that other people could work on it also. Okay, here's that same scene, exactly what it needs. One division going each way. And now I could duplicate this thing 50 times more, and I'm not going to experience any lagging issues because of improper optimization. Okay, it's going very quickly. There's no issue here. If I need to work with any of these, I can work with them very quickly. All right, so keep that in mind also, that you don't want to just hammer away and just insert like 50 million divisions, because it's just going to waste your time. Okay. The main thing I'm going to cover here with polygons and NURBS is just that I want you to understand them as we're going through the semester, and understanding the difference between them and some of their tools. One of the big things is like, okay, I want to create a chain. So, okay, there's a polygon torus, and here's a NURBS torus. Okay, let me spin around correctly. There we go. I'm going to switch to the top view and just go really quickly into the stuff. NURBS have control vertex that we can move, or hulls that we can move. These are the only two ones that we can move. On a polygon, we have vertex, edge, or face that we can move. On here, I'm just going to grab the hulls and pull these up, grab these, pull that down, and I basically have a chain link here. On this one, obviously, I have a lot more divisions, so I can't really do just that. I actually have to go through and reduce the amount of divisions on here to something that's manageable. Then I can grab, probably add a little bit more. Let's go 8. There we go. And they have the same amount. We'll pull this up, pull that down, hit 3. Okay, so I basically get the same shape. It's just a matter of what I'm doing. This guy here, when we get to UVs and texturing, his UVs are laid out in this fashion. This one doesn't have UVs because they're automatically connected. Okay, so typically, like for odd shapes, if I was to create this by scratch, I would definitely want to use a UV or a NURB surface to create it from scratch, just because of the UV setup. A polygon one is going to be a little bit different. Okay, so if you'll see like some of these weird shapes like CV curve, like that, creating a circle, and then I'm just going to go to surfaces, extrude. There we go. Okay, this shape here gets nice UVs laid out on it because it wraps around this entire thing. All right. If I were to try to create a polygon cylinder and shape it to this, I would have an impossible time kind of laying out the UVs and getting it to look correct. Okay. And this shape I can convert into a NURBS 2 polygons. Okay, so I can create this into a polygon surface. There it is. And all the UV information will come with it. It's not going to be perfect yet, but it'll be much better than it would have been otherwise. Okay, so typically, like for surfaces like that, we'll start with NURBS and then move it into polygons, or I'd never go backwards. I never go polygons and NURBS, even though there's an option I think in here, polygons to well, it's polygons to sub D and then sub D to NURBS. I wouldn't do that. It just gives you messy geometry. Okay, so I just want you to understand that about it, that we're going to be going in there and there's a difference in what we're doing and why we're choosing NURBS over polygons and polygons over NURBS. And I want to make sure that you understand both of these things as you're working, okay? And why you're choosing one over the other. And that's just going to come with the class. And then the last thing I'm going to show in this video is the hypershade. This is something that is very powerful, and you really have to go through and understand some of the tools inside it, okay? So here's all your materials that are right here. Here's Maya surface materials. We're not going to use any of these actually. We're going to be using Mental Ray for the entire class. So everything we're going to be doing is going to be done through here. And you'll see more of that when we get into this video right there. All right. So I'm just going to do, for this, I'm just going to show it on the Maya surfaces just because it's a little bit simpler to see. But eventually we're going to be working on those ones. All right. So I'm going to just do a blend. Okay. Now here is a blend. I can click this guy here, this input-output connection, or I can say graph, input-output connections. And it's going to show me a shading group and a blend. Whatever you create here, it has a shading group and it has a blend, okay? Or it has whatever you've created, a Lambert or anisotropic. And then if I want to connect something to this, I can do it right here. I can say I want to connect a ramp. So I can go down to ramp, and then I can middle drag, click on here and say I want to connect the ramp to the color. Okay, now that's no different than me going through the blend and clicking on this and going down to ramp that way. Okay, there's no difference in what I've just done. I've just done it manually. This is exactly what Maya is doing, is just doing that. And it's a middle drag, it's not a right drag or a left drag. Okay. And you want to become comfortable with this. You want to understand how these things are connected, because it just makes your understanding of the software much, much greater. I could add a fractal and say, okay, I want to use this fractal as a bump, middle drag, drop it on here, bump map. There it is. Okay. Now typically I'll click on the blend and use this input output just to remap this thing. And what this is showing is it's showing what's connected to what. Where are these things connecting to each other and making this thing work. And you could have other stuff go into it. I could say, okay, well, on this fractal, I'm out of screen space, so I'm kind of bouncing around. On this fractal here, under color balance, for this color gain, I want to use that ramp. So I can middle drag this onto color gain. And now I'm using that ramp as a color gain. And you'll see that representation here in the hypershade of how it's connecting it. You can see the arrow that branches off and goes into it. If you hold your mouse over this, it'll tell you the out color is going to the color gain. The out color is going to the blend color. This out normal is going to the normal camera. Okay? And very easily I can double click on these things and navigate to what I want to get to. I typically don't navigate through here. I like to use the attribute editor, so I'll go to, let's say, the blend. And right now it's showing all of this stuff. It's not always going to show it. Sometimes you have to go down to the color and click the arrow to get to the ramp. Click this back button, and you see it took me to the fractal and not back to the blend. Okay? So then I can play with stuff here. I can hit back again to get back to the bump, or back again to get back to the blend. Okay? But it can be very confusing using this interface, trying to navigate to what you want. So I recommend that you use, this until you're comfortable with it. And it's the optimal way to do it. It's just when you don't have a lot of screen space and you're recording something like this video, it's hard to keep going back to this because it just takes up that much space and I can't really see what's happening out here. If I have this open, at least I can see what's going on. So just keep those couple things in mind. Also, as you're doing this, you can connect things in here too. Like let's say I'm going to bring in a file. And I'm just going to go to my source images, not those ones. Work. What about project am I set on here? Organic modeling. So I'm just going to go and grab my wood texture here. Copy it. I'm just going to paste it. There it is. Okay. So I have this wood image right there that I'm using for my color. Well, I also may want to use as wood color for my bump. Okay. So I can middle drag this onto bump. And now I'm using that same file for my bump map. But now let's say that I brought in something else. Let's say it's another picture of wood. Okay, for whatever reason I brought in my specular color. I brought in that same file again. Okay, so now these two files are essentially the same. If I go into my place 2D texture for this one, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit closer. There we go. And let's say I repeated this one 5 and 5 times. Okay, so what's happening now is this bumped one and the color one is actually being repeated 5 times. Okay, because it's right there, 5, 5 on this bump. But this one is not being repeated 5 times. This is the same file. I want the same placement on here, otherwise it's going to look funky. So I want to go into this one and make sure that this repeat is 5 and 5. Okay, so now these things will match up a little bit better. But I don't want to have to keep going back and forth and continually changing both of these at the same time. All right. So if for whatever reason, let's say I brought this one in because I was going to do that to it. I don't know, whatever. Okay. So that'd be an obvious, difference in file, but the placement should still be the same. So what I can do is hold down the control key and middle drag this place 2D texture onto this one, and it'll automatically connect it. That way I have one place 2D texture reading it for both of them. Okay, so if I change this to 30 and 30, then it's going to change for both of these files. And as I zoom in on this, and let's say I change it to 2 and 2, just so I can see it better, I can see that that has been updated. You can kind of see that. Let me go back and we're going to have to do that to it. All right, so it's updating both of those. All right, so we have to look at this and we have to be able to understand, how is this flowing? Where are these things going? And that's why we have these little arrows. Okay, basically information is coming out of this and going into this and going into this. Okay, information is coming out of this one and going into that one. Information is coming out of this one, going into that one, and it's going into this one. Okay, so we have to understand these kinds of flows, because these things will get very complex. You'll see, I'll just pop open Google real quick so you can see it. Node graph shader. Some of these node graphs for shaders can get very complex like this, where you just have a lot of stuff going on in there in order to make it work correctly and make it look good. Okay, and you'll see some of that just as we're going in the class of how we can do this kind of stuff. And it's not limited just to materials. There's a lot of stuff we can do inside here too, like under utilities, where we can actually create connections between objects by doing that. Okay, so I just wanted you to have just a basic understanding of the hypershade, just so you understand where we're going with it, and it's really a critical thing. Okay, and this is something that you need to master. You need to understand this very well by the end of the semester. And all of these things, I really want to make sure you have a good grasp of them. That's why I put these things here, just so you understand that all the stuff that's on here is stuff that I really want to make sure you get out of this class. And using these other assignments are ways that we're going to experiment with these things and play with them and understand those kinds of things. Okay, so that's going to conclude video 1 of this, and then the next one will be video 2. All right, hopefully you're taking lots of notes. Any questions, ask them, obviously, and let's just keep going.